It wasn't the kind of night you'd expect to change everything. Murphy's Bar had always been our sanctuary. A place where mismatched chairs and flickering neon signs told stories of countless Friday nights. Where the jukebox played the same old songs, slightly out of tune but perfectly familiar. I remember sitting there, nursing my usual gin and tonic, watching Jack laugh with our friends. He was always so predictable, my husband. Same beer, same corner seat, same stories he'd tell about our college days. I used to find it endearing, that stability. Now it felt suffocating. Tyler caught my eye from across the room, and something shifted inside me. He wasn't supposed to be there that night. Our work group usually didn't overlap with my regular crowd. But there he was, leaning against the bar with that confident smile that made my stomach flutter. I shouldn't have felt that flutter. 15 years of marriage should have immunized me against such schoolgirl reactions. But Tyler was different. He carried himself with an energy Jack had lost years ago. When he spoke about his travels, his eyes lit up with possibilities. When he laughed, it wasn't the comfortable chuckle I'd grown used to. It was wild, free, contagious. I found myself gravitating toward him, like a moth to a dangerous flame. "Another round?" Tyler asked, sliding onto the bar stool next to me. His cologne was subtle but intoxicating. Nothing like Jack's familiar aftershave. "I shouldn't," I said, but I was already pushing my empty glass forward. Jack was deep in conversation with Mike about their fantasy football league. He wouldn't notice. He hadn't noticed much lately. Tyler's fingers brushed mine as he handed me the fresh drink. "How's that project coming along?" he asked, but his eyes said something else entirely. "We'd been dancing around this for weeks. Late nights at the office. Coffee breaks that stretched too long. Text messages that started professional but slowly crossed invisible lines." "It's challenging," I replied, aware of how close he was sitting. "The best things usually are," he said softly. I could feel Jack's eyes on us from across the room. But for once, I didn't care. The old Emma would have cared. The perfect wife, the reliable friend, the woman who never stepped out of line. But I wasn't her anymore. Maybe I never really was. "I need some air," I said, standing up perhaps too quickly. Tyler nodded, understanding without words. I didn't look at Jack as I headed for the door. The night air hit me like a wake-up call, but I wasn't ready to wake up. Not yet. Tyler followed a minute later, keeping a careful distance. "We shouldn't," I whispered, but I was already moving closer. "Probably not," he agreed, his hand finding the small of my back. That's when my phone buzzed. "Jack." I ignored it. Another buzz. "Everything okay?" Tyler's voice was concerned, but his hand didn't move. "Perfect," I lied, turning. Off my phone. The parking lot was dark, secluded. We'd been here before, in stolen moments between meetings. But this felt different. More real. More dangerous. "Emma," Tyler breathed, and I knew we were past the point of no return. His kiss wasn't like Jack's. It wasn't familiar or safe. It was everything I'd been missing. Everything I'd been afraid to want. When we finally pulled apart, the world had shifted on its axis. "Come home with me," Tyler said. It wasn't a question. It should have been harder to say yes. 15 years of marriage should have weighed heavier on my conscience. But in that moment, all I felt was free. We took separate cars, a last pretense of propriety. I followed his taillights through the city streets. My phone kept lighting up with notifications. I knew it was Jack. Probably wondering where I was. Probably worried. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt alive. Tyler's apartment was exactly what I expected. Modern, minimalist, nothing like the cozy suburban house I shared with Jack. No family photos. No accumulated clutter of a shared life. Just clean lines and possibilities. Want a drink? Tyler asked, but his hands were already on my waist. I shook my head. We were done pretending this was anything else. His kiss was harder this time, urgent. Clothes fell away like the last of my reservations. I didn't think about Jack. I didn't think about tomorrow. I just felt. Everything was sensation and freedom and desire. Until the pounding on the door. 3 sharp knocks that shattered our bubble. Tyler froze. I knew. Even before I heard Jack's voice, I knew. Open the door. Jack's voice was calm. Too calm. Tyler looked at me, panic in his eyes. I grabbed his shirt off the floor, pulled it over my head. No point hiding now. Tyler opened the door, and there was my husband. Standing in the hallway, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. But his eyes were burning. Move, Jack said to Tyler, who stepped aside like a scolded child. I lifted my chin, refusing to cower. What are you doing here, Jack? The words came out colder than I intended. Or maybe exactly as cold as I intended. What am I doing here? He laughed, but it wasn't his usual laugh. This was something broken. My wife disappears from the bar, ignores my calls, and I find her here. He gestured at my state of undress, at Tyler's obvious guilt. I think I should be asking the questions. Don't be dramatic, I said, the words tasting like ash. Dramatic? His voice rose slightly. You're in his apartment, wearing his clothes, and I'm being dramatic? Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Maybe I should. Shut up, Jack and I said simultaneously. It would have been funny in another life. How long? Jack asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. I could lie. Say this was the first time. But I was tired of lies. A few weeks, I said. Officially. His face crumpled. For just a moment before hardening. And unofficially? Does it matter? It matters to me, Emma. The way he said my name, like it belonged to someone else. Maybe it did. I've been unhappy for a long time, Jack. The words came easily now. Too easily. You just never noticed. Never noticed? His laugh was bitter. I noticed everything, Emma. I noticed how you stopped sharing your day with me. How you started working late. How you changed your perfume. I just didn't want to believe what it meant. His words should have hurt. Instead, they made me angry. If you noticed so much, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you fight for us? Fight for us? He stepped closer. You were already gone, Emma. I was fighting alone. The truth of his words hit me, but I refused to show it. Maybe I wanted to be gone, I said. Maybe this life, this marriage, isn't enough anymore. Maybe it never was. I saw the moment something broke in his eyes. The moment he stopped seeing his wife and started seeing a stranger. You don't get to rewrite our history, he said quietly. You don't get to make what we had meaningless just because you found something new. Tyler cleared his throat. Look, man. Don't, Jack cut him off. Just don't. He turned back to me. I'll have divorce papers drawn up tomorrow. His voice was steady now. Professional. Like we were discussing a business transaction. Don't bother coming home tonight. Or any night. He turned and walked out, his footsteps echoing in the hallway. The door closed with a soft click. Not a slam. Somehow that was worse. Tyler touched my shoulder. Emma. I shrugged him off. I need a minute. He nodded, retreating to the kitchen. I stood there, wearing his shirt, in his apartment. Everything I thought I wanted. So why did it feel like I'd lost something irreplaceable? My phone buzzed again. A text from Claire, my best friend since college. What have you done? I turned the phone off. I didn't need their judgment. I didn't need their understanding. I didn't know what I needed anymore. Tyler came back with a glass of wine. You okay? I took the glass. Perfect, I lied again. But this time, the word tasted different. Less like freedom. More like consequence. The night stretched ahead of us, full of possibilities. But all I could think about was Jack's face. The way he looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe I had been for a long time. I took a long sip of wine. Tomorrow would bring chaos. Questions. Judgments. Decisions. But tonight I would pretend this was what I wanted all along. Even as something in my chest whispered that I'd made a terrible mistake. Even as I remembered the way Jack used to look at me. Like I was his whole world. Now I was just someone who had burned that world to the ground. And I wasn't sure if the flames were worth the ashes they left behind. The morning after felt surreal. I woke up in Tyler's bed, surrounded by unfamiliar sheets. No Jack's gentle snoring. No coffee maker humming downstairs. Just the stark silence of consequences. My phone had 37 missed calls. 15 text messages. 3 voicemails. I ignored them all. Tyler was already up, making breakfast like this was normal. Like my world hadn't imploded hours ago. Eggs, he asked, too cheerful. Too casual. I shook my head. I need to go. His face fell slightly. Emma, about last night. Don't, I cut him off. Just don't. The irony of using Jack's words wasn't lost on me. I gathered my clothes from the floor. They smelled like Murphy's bar. Like guilt. Like the end of everything familiar. I'll call you later, I said. We both knew I wouldn't. The drive home was a blur. Our suburban street looked exactly the same. Neat lawns. Careful gardens. Picture-perfect lives behind picture-perfect doors. Jack's car wasn't in the driveway. I wasn't sure if that was better or worse. The house felt different. Colder. Like it knew what I'd done. Pictures on the walls screamed at me. Our wedding day. Vacation in Maui. Christmas with family. All those smiling faces. All those lies. I walked upstairs, each step heavier than the last. The bedroom door was open. Jack's closet was empty. Hangers swaying slightly, like ghosts of what used to be. He'd taken his essentials. Left everything else exactly as it was. Like a museum of our marriage. My phone buzzed again. Claire. We need to talk. I typed back, not now. She replied instantly, yes, now. 20 minutes later, she was at my door. No hug. No sympathy. Just hard eyes and crossed arms. What the hell were you thinking? I let her in. What choice did I have? I wasn't thinking, I said. Clearly, she snapped. Tyler? Really? She paced our living room. The room where we'd had so many girls' nights. Where Jack would bring us wine and pretend to complain about the noise. He makes me feel alive, I said. The words sounded hollow even to me. Claire stopped pacing. And Jack made you feel what? Dead? You don't understand. Then make me understand. How does 15 years of marriage end up in some guy's apartment? I sank onto the couch. Our couch. Where Jack and I used to curl up watching movies. It wasn't sudden, I said. It was building for years. Jack and I, we stopped growing. We became routine. Safe. Claire sat beside me. And that's bad because I want more. The words burst out. I want passion and excitement and cheating on your husband gives you that? Her voice was sharp. Cutting. You could have talked to him. Could have tried counseling. Could have gotten divorced first. Instead, you chose this. She gestured around the empty house. You chose to destroy everything. For what? A few exciting moan. NTS with a guy who couldn't even stand up to Jack? The truth hurt. Tyler had been pathetic last night. Standing there, silent and scared. While Jack had been dignified. Strong. Everything I'd convinced myself he wasn't anymore. I messed up, I whispered. Claire's laugh was bitter. Messed up is forgetting an anniversary. This is nuclear. My phone buzzed again. Jack's lawyer. Divorce papers would be ready tomorrow. He's not wasting any time, I said. Can you blame him? No. No, I couldn't. What do I do now? Claire stood up. You live with your choices. You let Jack go. You give him the dignity of a clean break. After what you did, you owe him that much. She walked to the door. Stopped. Turned. And Emma? What? Don't expect everyone to understand. Don't expect forgiveness. Some things can't be fixed. The door closed behind her. I sat alone in our house. Our perfect house. With its perfect memories. And its perfectly shattered future. My phone buzzed again. Tyler. I declined the call. He wasn't what I wanted. He never was. He was just an escape. An excuse. A match I used to burn down my life. And now, sitting in the ashes. I wasn't sure what I was escaping from. Or what I was running toward. The day stretched ahead. Empty. Endless. Full of decisions I didn't want to make. Consequences I didn't want to face. I walked through our house. Room by room. Memory by memory. The kitchen where Jack taught me to make his grandmother's lasagna. The living room where we danced on rainy nights. The study where he'd work late, but always had a smile for me. Each room held a piece of us. Of the life we'd built. The life I'd destroyed. My phone buzzed again. My mother this time. Claire called me. Of course she did. I'm fine, Mom. No, you're not. She was right. I wasn't. What happened to you, Emma? Her voice was soft. Sad. When did you become someone who could do this? I didn't have an answer. I didn't know myself anymore. The woman in our wedding photos. The woman who promised forever. The woman who meant it. Where did she go? When did I replace her with this stranger? This person who could hurt the one person who never deserved it. Night fell. The house grew darker. I didn't turn on the lights. Didn't want to see the reality too clearly. My phone kept buzzing. Friends. Family. Tyler. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone wanted explanations. But I had none to give. How do you explain burning down your own life? How do you justify destroying someone else's? I curled up on our bed. Jack's side was cold. Empty. Like everything else. Tomorrow would bring lawyers. Papers to sign. A marriage to end. But tonight I lay in the dark. Surrounded by the ghosts of what we were. What we could have been. If I hadn't been so foolish. So selfish. So desperate for something I couldn't even name. The tears finally see me. Not pretty tears. Not romantic tears. But ugly, choking sobs that echoed in the empty house. I cried for Jack. For us. For the woman I used to be. And for the woman I'd become. Someone who could destroy love for a thrill. Someone who could mistake emptiness for freedom. Someone I didn't recognize anymore. The night stretched ahead. Long and dark and lonely. Full of regrets that came too late. And realizations that cost too much. I'd wanted excitement. Change. Adventure. Instead, I got this. An empty house. A broken marriage. And the crushing weight of knowing. It was all my fault. The divorce papers arrived with the morning sun. Crisp, clean pages that would end 15 years of marriage. Jack's lawyer was efficient. Professional. Everything divided neat and clean. Like surgery with a sharp blade. I signed them without reading too closely. I owed him that much at least. A quick, clean cut. No arguments about china patterns or photo albums. Let him take what he wanted. I deserved nothing. Tyler kept calling. I kept ignoring. He didn't understand. He thought we could build something from these ashes. But ashes are just ashes. And he was never the point. Weeks passed in a blur. I took a leave from work. Couldn't face the whispers. The knowing looks. The empty desk where Tyler used to sit. He'd transferred to another department. Another clean cut. My friends divided like everything else. Some stayed. Most left. Claire was somewhere in between. You need help, she said one night. Over wine she brought but didn't share. Professional help. She wasn't wrong. The therapist's office was beige and bland. Designed to be forgettable. Tell me about Jack, Dr. Peterson said. I talked about our first date. The way he laughed at my jokes. How he proposed in our favorite park. Simple. Sweet. Perfect. And when did things change? That was harder to answer. They didn't change. That was the problem. They stayed exactly the same. While I became someone different. Someone restless. Someone who mistook contentment for confinement. I got bored, I admitted. The words tasted bitter. Bored of being loved? Bored of being safe? Dr. Peterson's questions cut deep. Made me look at truths I'd been avoiding. Jack's love hadn't been boring. It had been constant. Reliable. True. I was the one who turned those virtues into flaws. Who craved chaos over peace. Excitement over trust. "What do you want now?" she asked. I stared out her window. Watched leaves dance in the wind. "I want to go back. Fix what I broke." "But you can't." "No," I whispered. "I can't. Some broken things stay broken." Jack moved across town. I heard through mutual friends. He was doing well. Started going to the gym. Took cooking classes. Rebuilt his life without me. I drove by his new place once. Just once. Saw him through the window. He was laughing. The sight hit like a physica. Blow. He could still laugh. Still find joy. While I was drowning in regret. Months passed. Seasons changed. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. Ordinary day for an ordinary ending. I wrote him a letter that night. Poured out my heart. My regrets. My apologies. Mailed it the next morning. He never responded. I didn't blame him. Words were just words. And I'd lost the right to his forgiveness. Tyler reached out one last time. Coffee at a neutral place. "I miss you," he said. But his eyes were already elsewhere. The excitement was gone. Reality had settled in. "No," I said. "You miss the idea of me. The thrill of the forbidden. But that's gone now. And so am I." He didn't argue. We both knew it was true. What we had was never love. Just mutual destruction. A year passed. Then too. I changed jobs. Moved apartments. Started over. Dr. Peterson helped me understand. The restlessness wasn't about Jack. Or Tyler. Or even love. It was about me. My fear of contentment. My addiction to chaos. My need to break things before they could break me. I saw Jack once. At a coffee shop we used to love. He was with someone. A woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. The way he looked at her. I remembered that look. He used to look at me that way. Before I threw it away. He saw me too. Our eyes met across the room. No anger anymore. No pain. Just recognition. And a quiet acknowledgement. Of what was. What could have been. What would never be again. I left before he could see my tears. Some lessons cost everything to learn. I learned that love isn't about excitement. Or passion. Or grand gestures. Real love is in the quiet moments. The shared silences. The simple trust that tomorrow will come. And you'll face it together. I learned too late. Paid too high a price. But I learned. Now I sit in my new apartment. Smaller than our house. Emptier. But honest. No more pretending. No more running. Just me and my truth. I destroyed something beautiful. Something rare. And all the regret in the world can't fix it. Can't bring back what I threw away. Some nights I dream of that evening at Murphy's. Of making different choices. Of recognizing the value of what I had. But morning always comes. And with it, reality. We don't get to rewrite our stories. Only learn from them. And hope that somewhere, in some future chapter, we become someone worthy of forgiveness. Even if that forgiveness never comes. I've learned to live with that. With the consequences of my choices. With the knowledge that sometimes the greatest love stories end not with a bang, but with a quiet Tuesday morning and a signature on a dotted line. Jack found his happiness again. I'm still looking for mine. But I'm looking in better places now. In truth. In growth. In acceptance. And maybe that's the real lesson. That sometimes we have to lose everything to find ourselves. Even if we find isn't what we expected or what we wanted, but simply what we need to become better than what we were. End.